So I think it's a great lead-in to Attorney Bear. If he can explain some of the language. I know it talks about decoration, it talks about the word secular, it talks about the word religious, and maybe that'll help define, or at least explain to the board which is which.
Sure. Did you want to?
Yes, please.
First of all, I wanted to congratulate the HRC on the thoughtful work that they've done and the research that they've done. I think they've done a great job. As the attorney for the village, I didn't have any issue with the general concept, which I think the purpose and intent of the HRC, what they were trying to do, is be fair and be uniform and not run the village into a problem under the United States Constitution related to the Establishment Clause, equal protection, or equal access. That was the purpose and intent, and that's a great purpose. Not getting the village sued is a wonderful purpose and intent. The only issue was what it essentially did, it narrowly defined a certain type of holiday decorations that were banned in, to use the language from the policy, public buildings and spaces, without also addressing what else would be allowed to be displayed. In other words, signs, decorations, etc. in such spaces. So what my recommendation is to be a little bit more comprehensive, because somebody could say, well, you know, I want to put, I'd like to put an advertisement for this particular event up in front of Village Hall on the grass or whatever it might be, and your policy only addresses religious, you know, or holiday decorations. Well, where does this fit in that you know, sort of continuum? So the way that municipalities get into trouble with establishment clause or equal protection or access issues is if they allow one group to have access and then say no to another. So again, the purpose and intent is wonderful, but without a comprehensive approach where we define what is allowed or is not allowed in general, we could still run into an equal protection issue or an access issue down the line. So my suggestion was that we be more comprehensive about that. You really have two options as a municipality. You can say no to any group displaying anything. We start with the constitutional premise of the Constitution, and it's been said by the Seventh Circuit many times, that there's no constitutional right to place anything within a public right of way or on a public property. But once you cross that line, then the question is, are you giving equal access? So the line based upon the existing custom and practice of the village, as I understand it over the last 40 to 50 years, has generally been that they've not allowed any kind of displays in either public property or access or parks or any of those areas, unless it was merely an advertisement to promote a municipal event that might be co-sponsored or by either the municipality or municipal groups such as the men's club or whatever it might be that takes place within the municipality.
It's not a village event, right? Like the men's club.
Right, exactly. So my suggestion was reconsider and either A, in the first instance, not allow anything, or B, if you want a policy that comports with the custom and practice, here's some suggested language. So again, I don't want to be part of the policy discussion because that's not my role as the attorney. So the language that you have that was handed out tonight was merely one example that might reflect the custom and practice of the municipality over the past number of decades. That's one way to approach it. The second question that came up was the E-roof. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Am I getting that? Am I pronouncing? Okay. I want to make sure. I looked through the historical documents of the municipality, and back in 2001, there was a request for a special privilege to erect some fishing line or some other types of lines in certain areas, and it was granted. So there's historical context for that. I looked at some case law and some other authority relating to that, and I don't believe the fishing line is a religious symbol like a nativity scene or menorah. At least that's not how it's been treated by the courts. It's merely something that will define an area. It doesn't, in and of itself, fishing line doesn't have any special significance that if the municipality allowed or disallowed would necessarily be advocating in violation of the Establishment Clause or creating equal protection or access problem. So I think that's a little bit different than the policy that the HRC was getting after. But I do think this needs a little bit more time to bake and for the HRC to discuss how do we get to where we need to be with our original intent, which is wonderful, to protect the village from getting sued and treating all groups equally. How do we create a more encompassing policy that defines what is allowed in our public buildings and spaces, as opposed to taking a subset of that and saying this is banned, but not defining what else might be available.
Can I ask a
Sure,
specific
sure.
question? So what the language here, it says anybody that's affiliated with the municipality. That's not just any nonprofit. I mean, you know, men's club's a nonprofit, we have the women's club, and they're not affiliated with us, but regardless, anybody that is affiliated with us and ourselves could put up signs, symbols, and other communications for events, but what if they're secular or religious? We still haven't gotten to the policy of what we allow in our public spaces to deal with holiday decorations. So I think this is great that we are talking, because I know this has come up on other things like elections, and that's a great policy to have, but to throw that back at the HRC is odd. I think the specific, because we're still going to come to the question whether it's a non-affiliated member, you know, group with the village or ourselves or the school district or anyone else, like the library, say an affiliated member, I don't know, CDA, I can't think of another affiliation of a municipality that's not a municipality, but a group. Can they put up religious decorations or secular decorations, secular holiday, like a Christmas tree? And I think that's what we threw at the HRC is, because of all of the things the attorney said, equal rights protection, blah, 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 it was specific to religious and secular decorations. So I think we're gonna come back to that regardless of, this is great, we can start here, and I appreciate it, because I know we don't have it on the books anywhere, but the next part is what we need input on, and what we're gonna be debating is no secular or religious holiday decorations by anybody, even ourselves, just secular and not religious, but that question still has to be addressed.
I don't agree, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
When we were discussing this in our subcommittee, we had three options. One of which was to allow no decorations at all, one of which was to allow just secular, and one of which was to allow all.
By any group.
By any
ourselves.
group, and by any group. The reason why we chose none was because, to be fair and inclusive to all, we don't want to offend anyone. And so I think the question of whether it's secular or not, we debated that for several months, and we came to the language that we have right now, which is no secular, because again, that could be offensive to some. There are some things that are considered secular, i.e. Christmas tree. To some people in their religions, that is a religious icon.
I just want to be specific, I apologize. I just meant the attorney's language, the substitute language. I see that, and I appreciate that. I was there for some of that conversation, but the attorney's substitute language does not do that.
Okay.
Well, I think that it doesn't fall within the category of what's allowed or not be allowed. But, you know, again, all I was trying to do, I want to be really careful, because the point that I was making is, here's an example of an all-encompassing policy that was an attempt to incorporate the custom and practice as it's been carried out in the municipality for many decades. I think that the municipality has been careful not to create these problems for itself. But again, the policy decision, you can do whatever you want and make a decision in a different direction, and that's a policy decision. I was just trying to give an example of an all-encompassing policy that would tell everyone that looked at it what you can and can't do, as opposed to just defining one subset of what you can.
But also says, can you, as a village, put up Christmas tree based on this language? Because it says anyone not affiliated with us can't, but
Well,
it
the village
doesn't
can
say.
do, right, the village can do whatever, yeah, I mean, it's been defined as a secular, it's a secular symbol many times by the courts, and, you know, it could, I mean.
Which I think is different from the HRC's version, which says we cannot. And I think that's different, I apologize if I wasn't clear on that.
Well, that would be an internal policy of the village that will not displace such a thing. But a policy that would be the village regulating itself. The concern that you run into, and the way that you want to handle it is, the way that you want to let everybody know what you're gonna do with respect to those venues. The village can always regulate itself and say, we're not gonna do X, Y, and Z.
Yep, and then trustee Warren. Go ahead, you had a comment?
I just wanted to share, that was a question that I had also shared with Attorney Bayer, and he had supported at that time, well, that needs to be documented as well, we can definitely do that. That could, because that is something that I would like to have, just some level of agreement amongst us as a group.
Trustee Warren.
Another threat that I want to make sure we don't miss, in the cover memo to this item, you also talked about seasonal decorations being exempted out of kind of this policy. And in the policy itself, there's no language about what constitutes a seasonal decoration and what does not. Which is why I think, that in addition to other things, I think it makes sense to get this policy a little more fully baked. Simply because, as Attorney Bayer said, you want to also maybe make a more encompassing policy, and you don't want to leave certain things out of the policy and end up having to revisit.
Because we hang snowflakes, right? So I told trustee Enoch on the phone today, we hang snowflakes, and so is that considered secular or religious? And again, that's self-regulating, right, because it's the village, but the VID might take it over, so I just need to know, is that the policy presented by HRC says no secular or religious decorations, or whatever.
I don't know how you define, I'm not sure whether it's no.
It's a secular, I think it's snowflake, it's
Yeah.
circular thing, like a Christmas tree or a Santa or something. Is it religious? Probably not.
I mean, a snowflake, okay, so there may be some religion that has a snowflake as its particular religious thing. So in that case, you would say that, but, I mean, I think commonly, I can't think of a religion that is like that. There might be a religion, but I think a snowflake is commonly accepted as a non-secular decoration to celebrate the winter season. A Christmas tree, now this is where the Christmas tree issue gets complicated because the courts have said the Christmas tree is secular like a snowflake, but its name is a Christmas tree. So that is kind of what we were really struggling, that HRC was really struggling with. And this, so, I mean, me personally, I think, yes, there's gonna have to be someone is gonna have to make some decisions along this. I mean, is Santa, is Frosty the Snowman, religious or, under this policy, secular or religious? I mean, so there's gonna have to be some judgment involved, but, I think most of us know, what is a religious symbol and what is something relating to, like a pumpkin for the fall, a snowflake for the.
Point of clarification, what's in front of us says no, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys debated this for a while, no religious or secular decorations.
Holiday themed decorations, not just secular.
Secular holiday theme. Okay,
decorations.
so that would
Not
be
any
stockings,
secular decoration.
snowman.
Christmas tree.
Okay, so any holiday decorations basically.
Snowman,
Secular,
a
that's religious.
snowman is not
It's
just
secular,
Christmas.
it's not religious.
I mean, when we discussed it, and for the many months that we discussed it, we talked about all of that, and to trustee Amanda, what she said, when it comes to like a snowflake, that's a seasonal thing. When it comes to leaf, that's a seasonal thing,
As opposed to holiday.
as opposed to holiday.
Oh, I see.
When it comes to like a snowman, I think that would be to what the the village attorney said, something that we would have to self-regulate on. But our intent was to exclude most religious things that would be considered holiday decorations.
And I think that's the name of the policy, it's holiday decoration.
One other point of clarification, so could it, I know it's the tree that is really everyone, and that's called secular, otherwise it would be like, we're no religious. But is there a way to word it, if there were no other, I don't know what the HRC said, but if there were no other opposition to holiday decorations except the tree as a secular holiday decoration, is there a way to word that to say no religious and, or secular Christmas tree? Like, if that's the only one, but anyways, I'm sorry, yes. Thanks. And then trustee Bachhorst, go ahead, and then trustee Bachhorst.
So I think just kind of reading the vibes from room when trustee Mento was listing things, and I feel like when, like, the snowflake, everyone's kind of like, yeah, we agree that's not, and like, the pumpkins, everyone's like, yeah, like the leaves do, and then the fact that snowman like created like this, we're all like, if you looked around, so to me, that's kind of a clear sign where if it's a decoration, and then a discussion is needing to be had of, is this a secular holiday decoration? And if people are unsure, that's probably been an option that it's not acceptable within the policy that we put forward. Just would be where I think the other ones seemed very straightforward and clear that way.
I don't know if I heard that. Trustee Bachhorst. Trustee Bachhorst.
The holidays, like for St. Patrick's Day, I'm just like, I've been in a lot of workplaces and people, this doesn't address what we're doing with employees, that may be in the personnel handbook, but, you know, for the clovers, it's a holiday.
It's
It's a holiday themed decoration. The other thing on this policy, it's first the public spaces, public right of way. Milwaukee County also owns Estabrook Park, and it's public, state-owned public land. We should be specific, it's municipal-owned public buildings, public spaces. We also, that doesn't mention Hubbard Lodge or River Club and buildings. We also have leases on those two buildings, and under the lease, there is a clause that provides the village cannot interfere with the decorating of the space that the owner is leasing from the village. So some acknowledgement within the policy that, you know, there may be other rights beyond this policy that people have to get with, I don't know. We do issue permits for public parks. I don't know, I know at one point, Hubbard Lodge was conducting wedding ceremonies down in the open area, down on the flats near the river. Some of those are probably religious ceremonies, I don't know. They are holiday decorations, but it's a question.
And they're not leasing that space.
Right.
It's just kind of.
But I could see like the women's club wants to use the library, village center, and they want some holiday decorations
Selling
on
cookies with
tables.
Like Easter egg hunt at Hubbard Park.
Yeah,
Or like, you made a point of the women's club, I was thinking the same thing, it's affiliated in a sense, not really, but they sell Christmas cookies. Or there are things for their sign that they're putting in a public right of way, might have a 4-leaf clover on it, so.
As long as the municipality is not discriminating and allowing access to its public spaces such as the parks and granting the permits, then the municipality is not condoning or endorsing the event for purposes of establishment of other issues. And, you know, as long as we're giving equal access, we should have no problem.
So the Easter egg hunt on the Hubbard?
No, that's
We
not.
don't, yeah, we don't give a permit for that.
So is that
And we
correct?
don't require a permit.
So as long, I didn't see that in policy, but that would make a distinction, that we're not issuing an approval.
And it's also not a decoration. It's not a decoration.
that's true.
That's a different issue
Yeah.
though.
They might
The
have one on the
access,
sign.
the access for an event.
Well, it's
This is what they ran into.
decoration.
You know, this is what they run into with, requests for groups to do protests or demonstrations, and if there's a security issue with that. But generally, as long as you're giving equal access to the parks, there's not an issue with respect to the municipality being seen as endorsing any of the activity.
I see. Trustee Carpenter, Warren, and then Bachhorst.
You know, I think that, I think that this policy is not to not acknowledge that the holiday exists. It's just really to keep the separation of church and state and really keep us out of all of the religious displays within the community and keeping that equal for everybody. So, yes, those holidays still happen, and if somebody wants to wear a Christmas sweater or whatever that may be, that, you know, that is still happening. It's just really very critical for everybody in the community.
Trustee Warren?
And I agree with obviously a lot of what's been said here tonight. I'm just trying to get a handle on what kind of our next steps are and trying to strategize getting through this. It sounds like what Attorney Bear and the human the Human Relations Commission would like to have another shot at this in order to clear up some of the myriad questions that we've raised throughout this hearing. And I guess from my point of view, I'm okay with that, but I do want to make sure that this gets into place prior to the holiday season coming up. And I really appreciate all the work you guys have done. I know this is an authority issue to work through it. You've done great work on this, and you know, we're getting to the end, but it sounds like we still have some unanswered questions.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. This is a slippery slope issue, I would say, definitely. And I also understand the desire not to be offensive to any group, but I do find that that's impossible in life. So I guess one of the things that is we have had discussion here and difference of opinion perhaps, or at least taking pause on what constitutes a religious symbol, or we'll just go with holiday symbols, with snowflake or frosting or any snow. I'll be PC here since that's what we're kind of doing. Snow individual. So yeah, it's a tricky subject. So I'm really glad that you guys are working through this. I would hate to see us though, as a municipality, become so worried that we don't allow any holiday decorations. Although majority of the holidays do have some kind of religious tilt. So I'm excited to see what you guys come back with about that. I'm glad I'm not bringing that.
Did you view the school?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish. And the school district had this discussion over a decade ago, and that's a great question. I was going to ask that as well, if you reviewed the school's policy, because I know that the rec department rents out the rooms in our public building, the school district. And in fact, I started laughing during this discussion before just because, and I won't mention any names, but you know this individual was upset that the school district was allowing, I can't remember which religious groups, to rent out some of the rooms. And so he rented out a room or made a sign about, I think it was like the Atheist Club or something like, as his protest to that.
Do they allow religious and or secular in their spaces? I think, I remember it just saying secular was allowed, but not religious, but I might be wrong.
I believe it's secular. I remember us discussing the school and realizing that, and what we discussed was that they had a separate policy because it was a school district, and it wouldn't necessarily have any impact on ours, and we wouldn't have an impact on theirs from what we understood. And so, I don't remember us reading it, I remember us discussing.
Trustee Menta, and then Trustee Warren, and then Trustee McKay, I didn't know if you had your hand up. Okay, so.
I just think it's important to remember that where the holiday tree generally has been for the past 2 years is not public property. So really, in essence, nothing is going to change. The bid organizes that event, and it's perfectly fine for them to put up a tree, a menorah, whatever they want to put up. We're really just talking about spaces that are publicly owned, that we own, the village. The snowflakes are, I think everyone's determined, they're not holiday themed. So there's not going to be any change to the snowflakes. I mean, truthfully, the only issue that, it may come about the lights that are on that DPW puts on the tree at that one. That's the only thing that might conceivably be affected by this.
Okay, Trustee Warren, and then Trustee McKay.
I think I can attempt to put a motion on the table here. So I'm going to move to refer this matter back to the HRC to work with the village attorney to finalize the holiday decoration policy. The holiday decoration draft at their September 11th meeting, based on our conversation tonight, for presentation and approval at the next village board meeting on September 16th.
Okay, so we have a motion by Trustee Warren, second by Trustee Menta. We will have further discussion. Trustee McKay, Trustee Bachhorst, and I have a question. Trustee McKay.
I would support that motion, and I think what I just wanted to say is that this policy is called holiday decorations, and the language in it talks about holiday decorations, and it's clear. To me, this alternative language does make sense, but it gets into signs, symbols and other communication, which I just think is, we can add it to this policy, but then just change the title of the policy to be signs, symbols, you know, or something, but, so either way, it worked, or this could be a separate one, because I think that it raises something, you know, idea to consider if we don't already have it covered somewhere else. So it's either find the way it is, do this separately, or combine them if, because I think the same, but thank you very much.
Trustee Bachers.
I just had a clarification on the language in the motion. I think you had said you were directing the HRC to work with Attorney Bear. Is Attorney Bear generally at the HRC meetings, or is that something that?
I'm not, unless directed to by staff.
And do we normally, thank you for bringing that up, for point of clarification, because we pay our attorney by the hour, and I'm just wondering if we wait, how do you do that? What would be a great way to do that, so we set a process in place? At the board, we need our attorney, but how do you do that with a committee that's not of the board, but not a committee, a board committee?
Well, I think with the board has been clear, I think the board is asking for them to work on it now. To everyone's point, now that there has been, the intent of the policies come forward, which I think has been really,
We really talked about the intent very much, just kind of clarifying.
I heard it loud and clear.
Oh, wait, recommendations, prior, I heard it loud, okay.
Like emailing back and forth, I mean, I'm not asking Attorney Bear to attend the meeting. It's more of a just making sure they're working.
I feel like it would be helpful if he did
Oh, I
attend.
think.
I think it would perhaps, I think the email and that's great, but I do think they have about a half hour to 45 minutes budgeted for this, and I think that it may assist the process. I think we may spend more time. Sometimes there's nothing that substitutes for the in-person conversation. And hearing the productive discussions that your group has had so far, if you're available, Attorney Bear would welcome your participation.
Did that answer your question first?
Yeah, thank you.
So my question, I have just one point and then a point of clarification. It sounds like two things as you're working through this ordinance. One is what the village can or cannot approve, meaning permitting, because I remember that just came out in our discussion, so you approve it. The second part of that to address is enforcement. So you may give or not approve something, but then if your policy says in your public space, like Village Hall lawn, that's public space, but all of a sudden someone puts something up, the second part that needs to be addressed is enforcement. What do you do? Because sometimes we don't give a permit, but we get a call that says something's in the public right of way. And so I just would like those two things to be very clear. Those are the two things that I see as our role. And if others don't, we can always strike that language, but that is, what do we do if it's in the public right of way and someone makes a call? So, or a park or something like that. So those are the two things. And I don't know what kind of direction you need. We are going to be expending attorney time. I hear that's the will of the board. I'm not comfortable with using the word secular in this policy. I don't know if we need to, maybe I'm the only one, but is that something you want the board to give some input on? I mean, the content, I love the recommendation, I appreciate the work, I'm very glad that and I'm glad it's going back and have further discussion, but in general tonight, we talked about kind of what the words are, and Trustee Menta feels a snowflake isn't a holiday decoration that's secular, it's more of a seasonal decoration, but I'm not comfortable with that. And I believe, I'd like to look at the school district's policy if the attorney has not, or maybe HRC could, just to see, I believe they allow secular decorations during holiday session, but it doesn't matter, I just wanted to know that answer. Trustee.
I will state clearly that if taking out secular gets us back into the Christmas tree neighborhood, then leave secular in. I just want to be really clear about that.
Yep, and
I think that was really
excluding the tree.
well considered, and so I just want to be really clear that I completely support religious and secular decoration. So I just,
and I'm fine with that tree, I'm not comfortable with either, but what else is secular? I'd like a better definition, and because I'm not clear on snowflakes, you know, St. Patty's Day is a saint, with us, you know, so I'm not, that's for when it gets to the board.
Angel?
I don't know, and so some things may have been talked
and
about,
we
but.
don't do that, so we wouldn't have to change it. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's
but
okay.
No, I'd rather not interrupt. I think we can keep going around this. I guess listening to the discussion, I don't know what you need to hear to move on. Like I just don't know where this is going.
Oh, I was just asking the village attorney and the village manager, would it be helpful for the board to go around and just give some input so you know you have the will of the board in what you're drafting? Okay, that's the direction, yes.
I just have one question, because this might help compartmentalize, is if the intent of the policy is for the village to regulate itself, in other words, what it will display on its own property, as opposed to what it will allow third parties to display on property, that's an easy one. It can be,
Yeah, no, I think it's both.
you can, then you can take the issue of how do we be more broad, and how do we define what we will allow third parties to do on our property. You can take that up separately if you want, and you could, for all intents and purposes, clean this up and pass it as is. But so there's really a couple different approaches. One, do that and decide how the village will regulate its own action, and then take on third parties on requesting to display on public land separately, or you could do it all together at the same time, which is what is being presumed by the example that I
I
tried.
say all together. Would you like us to go around just so you have a better direction? I mean,
It's up to you, I'm happy to.
anyone feel like they want to take them not together?
I was confused on persons, was it third parties? Because you got employee issues, you got, but that should be clarified if it's, that it is everybody, that it's employees,
Who is
it's
the-
persons, it's anyone.
So does anyone just want to take, just regulate what we do ourselves? Or is this all, I thought the intent I heard was for people that want to come and put decorations in the park or something.
I think it's for both, I think we should do both,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I trusted my person.
I don't know, I think
Okay.
it should be able to.
Okay, so I just want to help clarify that. So
And that's in
one
this
thing now.
policy already.
Right, I just want to clarify, if somebody wants to display something on their personal workspace and their desk, that's a different issue. But
That's the counter at Village Hall.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, and then, go ahead, Joyce.
I just had some more clarity on what is a holiday decoration. I'm hearing seasonal, there's gotta be other municipalities who have dealt with, what is a seasonal decor? Or maybe they have.
Secular, there's court cases, right?
Secular holiday.
Well, there is, but again, the example that I gave was one in which we defined what was allowed to the exclusion of anything that doesn't fit the definition. So that's another way to approach it, is anything that falls outside the definition of what's allowed is not allowed. So that rather than defining in the negative, this is disallowed, disallowed, disallowed. You're
It
saying
doesn't do
what
that
is.
here, though. It doesn't say, in the language you provided, as I stated, it says signage promoting events, but that signage could have a secular or religious, so it doesn't say what is allowed.
Well, anything.
Within terms
Yeah,
of holiday
I
decorations.
mean, okay.
Can I interject on
Yeah.
that? So there's really no way for us to put what is allowed, because I think it would be just as arduous to do that. So I was talking, where we're talking, and I think maybe the separate issue, having a separate issue might be better, because then we can focus on one, and then you can tweak for the latter, is basically, I kind of agree with the village attorney that it should be, that it could be split into two. I think the spirit of what we've been trying to get through all these months is to not offend, right? And I think in our village, we always say we want to be inclusive. To be inclusive when it comes to religion means to accept others, but then not necessarily have them be offended by what you believe, to have respect for that. So I don't think there's a way for us to include or come up with a list of everything that's going to be included. I think the language needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, it needs to be specific, but you can do that without having to include every single thing that you would like. And to your question about other municipalities, they have, but they've always done either secular or they haven't.
Right.
But they've never really put in what's included.
Trustee Warren.
Just trying to kind of to focus this a little bit. I agree with you. You can't possibly put down everything that might be included, but I think we're really dealing with three terms here: religious and secular, which we're saying no to, and then seasonal, which we're saying yes to. And this doesn't reflect seasonal necessarily, but I think we want to have some kind of mention of it. And obviously, you're not going to list, you're not going to go through each and every seasonal item that you can present, but it might be more of a description and more of a, using your discretion to figure out what's seasonal. And again, getting back to what Mackenzie said, if it's something where there's debate over it, it's probably not seasonal, so.
And is secular and seasonal the same thing? Secular is non-religious, correct?
Non-religious.
I would
I
say.
mean, how do you define secular? I don't know.
Non-religious.
Right, so the way courts have, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Bear, but anyways, I think there's two terms and.
But you keep confusing, you keep saying secular, it is, you have to think it's secular holiday themed.
That's the.
It's not secular, it's secular things that are holiday related.
So non-religious holiday
Well,
decorations.
and the only one that I think there is a
Or is
Christmas
this
tree.
a-
What?
Yeah.
Christmas tree, it's considered secular,
It's
but
the
it
only
is
secular-
holiday
so that's the only
themed.
secular decoration?
We're not saying everything's secular, because everything secular is
I don't agree with you, I think there's other secular holiday decorations in the tree.
like what?
Like a snowflake, like a Santa, like a Santa
Santa's not
Santa.
is a holiday, but is it
But
religious?
it's not a religious-
It
It
is
is-
secular, it's a secular
No,
holiday.
no, it's not. Yeah, the court says the Christmas tree is
No,
secular.
no, I didn't say the tree.
But
I said
not in
Santa.
Santa?
Right, but there's, I don't think there's case law. on
There is, Rick read it to us before, and Santa is a secular holiday.
How do we wrap this up?
So,
Wait,
is that a secular
I just
or a
want to,
holiday?
I asked for a definition, and it
We
made
have
fun of
public
me.
comment.
I'd like to get off this mail.
I just need, I agree with Trustee Hopper to wrap this up. I think the next, whether it goes back, and I like the mood, it goes back to HRC, but some kind of, I'm not clear yet, and that's the only reason I'm hesitating, I've said it since the beginning. Religious is a no-brainer for me. It makes it very inclusive if you don't allow anyone to do that. But the word secular I'm stuck on, and I think we've heard it from Trustee Warren, I think you've heard it from me, and you've heard it from Trustee Maher, that seasonal, secular, what do those mean? And just, if we can get a better handle on that, I think it would be a quicker process.
Can we speak
Now,
now or make comments?
Sure, is the rest, does anybody else have any discussion on what we have to do board first, and then we'll open it up to the residents? Nope, okay. If any resident would like to speak? I know the rabbis are too. Just your name and address.
Hi, my name is Richard Reingold, 3910 North Ridgefield Circle. Been a member and a village resident for over 46 years. I want to make a correction for our village attorney. On the high school lawn, we used to have a nativity scene, and we had Merry Christmas. It was there for many years. Somebody decided it may be offensive to a person or two. So we got rid of it. As a person, I'm Catholic. I know Jewish people that celebrate and have Christmas trees in their homes. And it seems today that we're worried about possibly offending somebody. Haven't we heard of tolerance and acceptance of different religions, beliefs? This whole discussion tonight came from basis of a committee. I don't know how many people are on the committee. What are we afraid of in this village for people that want to practice the faith? Whether it be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or whatever faith.
And you're speaking on public property, right?
On public property, private property, I know there's a difference. But what are we afraid of? I believe if we're going to be tolerant, we accept people. If I saw on the village high school a menorah, that'd be great. Wouldn't bother me at all. If I saw a nativity scene, it wouldn't bother me at all. If another religion has a scene they want to put up there, wouldn't bother me at all. We talked about acceptance, but we get nitpicky. We talked about secular, Christian. Somebody mentioned a line. I have no idea what you were referring to. But I came tonight simply because I saw David on TV and banning Christmas decorations or holiday decorations. What are we afraid of today? Can't we allow people to express their feelings? And can't we have a government that if somebody wants to put up decoration, that we don't condemn that person, that religion, simply because one person may be offended. I found that our lack of tolerance in this country today, and trying to accept everybody, but not allowing anything, is hurting us. And this whole discussion seems to be about nothing, in my humble opinion. Do we have to define every little bit of what occurs so we don't offend somebody? We talk about being inclusive, and we're not being. As a Christian, as a Jew, as a Muslim, let's get along and not worry about offending somebody. A good person practicing a spirituality should be allowed to do it. And as a government, I have no problem if we would have a menorah, a nativity scene, and any other symbol for the holidays on the lawns of the village. And it's ironic, it is called Christmas because our nation, when it was founded and the immigrants came over hundreds of years ago, they were escaping religious persecution. And separation of church and state does not mean don't allow for religion to practice. Separation of church and state, as I humbly understand it, is that we do not want a state-sponsored religion. That's my viewpoint. I may be incorrect. And I think the discussion tonight has been interesting, and I know I'm emotional, but let's get along and let's not nitpick everything to death. We had a committee, and I don't know how many people were on the committee. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10?
7.
You know? So in conclusion, if it is this important, let's put it as a referendum if you really want to screw stuff up. But maybe we just table it and not make a mountain out of minutia. Thank you.
Thank you, and just to respond, a reminder, we did start the conversation at the board of, do we want to limit the size? You know, like there was that option, and then before we made any decisions, we referred it to the agency for their recommendation. Does not mean the board would adopt their recommendations just for input. But I do remember at the board, there was talk and discussion about just having all religions being able to practice, but maybe just monitoring the size, like, so you don't have a big, huge, you know, whatever. That was part of the original discussion. That was, and then we referred it to committee. So I don't know if that was passed along, but that was an option. Thank you so much for your comments. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Allison Lippman. I'm at 1616 East Olive.
In Shorewood.
In Shorewood.
She was like, okay, thank you.
So I was a little bit confused by the title of this policy of holiday decorations. I think that's where some of the emotion comes in. We feel like someone's trying to steal our holidays. But I was at that very first meeting that was had, and we spent a very long time thinking that inclusive meant including everyone in their various ways and having, you know, as many religious symbols, and that could include, sure, a cross, a nativity scene, a Jewish art, could include satanic symbols if you're going there. And somebody at the end of that meeting said the hard choice, but the most inclusive choice, is to remove religious symbols and secular symbols. And it is hard, and it feels like, oh, the Christmas tree and the stockings and things like that, but there aren't Jews with Christmas trees in their houses. And I'm speaking for myself as a Jewish person. The Jewish community is not of one mind, but is widely supportive of separation of church and state. And we're talking about public property. We're not talking about your Christmas sweater. Even within this building, we're talking about displays of symbolism on public property. But I think that that doesn't exclude or make any different the people within this building or the people working for this government agency. The separation of church and state. So if we're talking about not including those symbols, we're talking about in public spaces and including this building. Those aren't two different things. And that is the brave choice. It is a hard choice, but it is the most inclusive choice. Because we know the dangers of not separating church and state.
Thank you so much. Would you like to speak? You can speak.
So I wanted to say good afternoon, but I think it's one thing to say good afternoon.
It's almost next day.
Soon will be good morning, yeah.
Just your name and your
So,
address.
My name is Yisrael Wayne. I'm a rabbi down on the east side. My address is 3133 North Hackett Avenue. I live in the city of Milwaukee limits, just a few blocks south of here. My organization, Chabad Lubavitch, Wisconsin, is one that provided the menorah that was displayed for the past 2 years at the bid right outside Metro Market, and whatever that building there is called, and it seems like the names are changing every couple days. For marketing purposes, we'll keep that for another time. What was that?
Was it Wood Square? Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to address a couple of things over here, and I know that the Eruv was brought up, so I'll get my 2 cents in on that as well. So just a couple of quick, brief thoughts, obviously, as the organization that brought the menorah in. So, you know, we actually put up a menorah for one day at Atwater Park, even before we had one at the bid in Shorewood. And I spoke to whoever was managing the permits for the Parks Department at the time, and I don't recall names very well. And it's either 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but don't catch me on my word, I believe it was 2 years ago. That's almost 2 years ago, right before my daughter was born, right after actually. And the point was that I asked her if we need to have a special permit. She said, you don't have to have a permit, no problem. And we ended up doing a menorah lighting ceremony. I just want to point out something over here. This might go back to what the village attorney said earlier about weddings in a park, right? There are people who have weddings in the park at Atwater Park all the time. You see couples coming, going, taking pictures, God knows what kind of things they're doing. I think there's a difference between a sign and a ceremony. I just want to point that out, and you can put that down. A sign means I'm coming, I'm displaying something for everyone to see. A ceremony is something that I'm coming and doing. If I choose to come to the river and dip, because for me the spiritual significance is maybe a ceremony, but it's an action that I'm taking versus displaying something which is going to remain on display for a long time, I think there might be a difference there. And this might be something to take into consideration as far as the permits hold. And again, just put it out there. As far as the Eruv is concerned, I also think there's a big difference between something which is a sign, and a sign is meant to be seen, interpreted, versus something which is there not to be seen, not to be interpreted. And I want to go specifically about the Eruv and how the Eruv works, so we have a clear understanding. First of all, every single concentration of Jews in the greater Milwaukee area has an Eruv. And when I say every, I'm including, go from the north all the way south, Mequon, Bayside, Glendale, and the West Side community as well, the Sherman Park community. Okay? So every concentration where you have a synagogue and you have a Jewish community has one of those. The East Side community, which includes 3 different synagogues, 3 Orthodox synagogues, is the only community that does not have an Eruv yet. And one of the issues is because working between Shorewood and the East Side and the county and all the other municipalities, to get everyone on board to agree to something has always been very difficult. And what people don't understand is, okay, that there are Eruvs which are constructed without any additions whatsoever being put up. Now, let me just explain briefly why, okay? If you drive on I-43 north through Bayside, okay, Glendale and then Bayside, there's a fence on the right side, on the east side of the highway, there's a fence going along that entire highway. The fence was put in by the Department of Transportation, God knows how many years ago. And please don't throw me out for saying that word.
That's it, out.
So the fence was put up by the Department of Transportation years and years ago, and when the Bayside community decided that they wanted to have an Eruv in order to make life easier for the Jewish community that was living there, so they presented a plan, and the plan was that we're going to utilize X, Y, Z. Now the key word is utilize. We're taking infrastructure that's here already, utilizing it, and making what in Jewish law constitutes a boundary. So you're talking about fence. In many cases, most of the Bayside Eruv, aside from that fence,